Hello, welcome to Art in the Digital World. I'm your host, Brandon Town. On this show, we talk to different artists who generally use some kind of digital medium or camera equipment or computers. And this week we have Manuel Crosby, who is going to be talking to us a little bit about video production. Thanks for coming on the show today, Manuel.
Thanks for having me, Brandon.
We've actually worked together on many different things, but you're a great person for the show, and I think that, you know, just my experience with you, you have a lot to say about video production and the digital media and stuff. You know, you seem really in it, huh?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, being around here at the studio a lot and getting more into filmmaking and going to film school, especially the whole debate between film versus digital. I've heard a lot about that and have, some experience in that as well.
So tell me just a little bit about yourself and maybe kind of how you got started into video.
Okay, well, I got started in video production. Man, it seems like I've always been interested in movies pretty much since I was 5 and I saw Star Wars in the movie theater with my dad. That was kind of, I didn't really understand the concept of how a movie was made or like what it really was, but I just thought it was the coolest thing. And then, I would watch, growing up, watch like behind the scenes things on how it was done, and, that kind of thing. So that was, I guess, kind of sparked my interest in how, like, what went on behind the cameras. And then when I was in high school, I started taking video production at Calaveras High School. And around that same time, maybe a little before, my friend Ian Robertson, he got a video camera. And we just started making little projects, trying to make our own versions of the movies we liked, and it just kind of went on from there. So I think that around that time, 14, 15 years old, was when I really started, getting my hands wet, I guess you could say, with video production, and been doing it ever since.
So tell me about the school that you're going to.
I'm going to USC in Los Angeles. They have a really good film school there. I'm in my 3rd year right now, so I'm kind of in the middle of my film production classes in that school. And I really like it. They actually, speaking of the film versus digital thing, they recently went all digital because George Lucas, creator of Star Wars, for those who don't know, he gave them a ton of money to go digital, so of course, who would turn that down? And so that's what I'm shooting on right now at school for my projects.
It's interesting because when I was going to film school, they changed from film to digital while I was going to school. So my first couple of years were kind of film oriented, and then my last couple of years were more digital, more video. So it's kind of interesting to get a little bit of both, the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about when you're going to school, like what kinds of things do they teach you? How do they teach you to be a video producer?
Well, the first thing at my particular school, the first thing that they work on or teach us is how to create a story, and it's all about the narrative and the story before we even touch any of the equipment. We watch movies, we do all kinds of other general education stuff, and just, I guess, first getting a wealth of knowledge to draw on when we make our movies, and then going in and looking at movies specifically and understanding what goes into a narrative and what makes certain things compelling versus others that might not be so compelling. And so once we really get that down, that's when we start with the camera and editing and all of that stuff. And they teach us, everything from how, composition, lighting. They teach us how to use sound equipment, what makes good sound recording on set, sound design overall, and post-production. They teach us how to, what goes into editing, what kind of cuts work versus don't work. Pacing, that kind of thing. And so, it's pretty much everything from the beginning of the process, coming up with an idea, writing that script, then creating it, and they kind of walk us through all of that stuff. So.
Now, from my experience too, I had a similar experience in school, but you know, the video production world or film world or whatever you want to call it, most people kind of choose a specialization. They choose something that they kind of want to focus on. Mm-hmm. Do you kind of know what path you are going on and maybe what that is?
Well, you know, that's an interesting question. I feel like it's always shifting somewhat. I've always been really interested in the camera, and you know, the more I learn about lighting, the more I get interested in the cinematography side. So I think that's what I'm hoping to focus on mostly from this point forward. But you know, being at USC and learning how to write scripts and come up with stories has really, you know, kind of given me a growing interest in the writing side, and cinematography and writing aren't usually two things that people necessarily will like do together. Usually, you know, you get a lot of writer directors or something like that. But so, you know, maybe I'm considering, you know, pursuing cinematography as a profession, and then, you know, continuing to write on my own, and you know, hopefully come up with something good. I think it would be cool to, you know, direct a movie someday, but I don't see myself as like, you know, someone who's going to be directing all the time as my job. It would probably be, if I did direct, you know, a feature film or feature films, they would be, you know, I think smaller, more personal things than, you know, Steven Spielberg or somebody like that. So.
Cool. Well, we do have a clip with some videos that you have done. Why don't we go ahead and watch them, and then we can talk about it afterwards. So okay. Let's go ahead and play some of the clips that Manuel has prepared for us.
My oldest, Jonathan, he's the star basketball player, and Katie, my little cheerleader. Go Tigers! Oh, I just don't know what went wrong with Brittany.
I worship the watermelon. It is the true divine melon. that is greater and more powerful than any other common fruit. When a person swallows a watermelon seed, it starts to grow inside them as the melon spirit takes over their own body. When the process is complete, when the melon is completely grown inside our own body, then that spirit stays on earth and our spirit goes to Watermelona, a heaven for melon worshippers. I'm part of a group, a cult if you will, and we worship the melon. In a year's time, we will swallow the watermelon's precious seed and let the process begin.
So yeah, they were cool enough to just let us go and nothing serious. But here at USC, I got a bunch of tickets. You might want to edit that. Yeah, I think everybody wants to get sponsored. Some people make it, some people don't. But I guess for me, it's just like whatever if I get it or not, just so long as I skate every day and like just get on my board. That's good enough for me. Just film tricks. You know, filming is cool. Like people get to see it. You know, I can't even look back at it, but like when I'm old, like show my kids, like, hey, look, that's me. Like, you can't beat that. Show my kids, and that's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, if I get sponsored, that would be awesome. I'm trying to, but you know, it's just, I guess I just gotta wait.
I encounter a lot of negative stereotypes for skaters. I think it's mostly just because people don't understand what skateboarding is.
I definitely feel like it's pretty negative. They definitely think skaters don't have as much cut out for them in terms of their future. They're not taken as seriously. Like, it's just as valid a sport as some of the major ones that people are watching, like baseball, football. It's just not getting enough respect from people.
I used to get it before I started like filming and taking photos. Like my neighbors all hate me just because I create a ruckus, so they have like this image that you're a bad kid. They're all probably pretty surprised that I have like good grades in college.
The main images associated with skaters are related to drugs and alcohol use. Yeah, it's just seems like they're tagged as a stoner crowd, even though they're two very distinct things.
People are gonna like judge no matter what, so like, I don't know, I guess you just gotta prove them wrong, you know?
Some pretty interesting stuff there. I liked it though. I think that if I didn't know you and didn't have this, didn't know that you were in video production, I could tell from the stuff that the early stuff that we talked about before, that you were definitely interested in video production. I've seen a lot of really young amateur video type stuff, and you can almost tell just by looking at it the difference between the people who really have a passion for it and the people who are just doing it because they want to make movies. Like you have some really interesting camera angles. You're trying to do different, really interesting stories, and so.
Thank you.
But why don't you briefly tell me about some of those projects that we saw? So.
All right. Well, I guess I'll start with the first one. That was I made that with my friend Ian. I mentioned him before. That was probably One of the first, if not the first, that was like an original story that we came up with, that we weren't just like ripping something off. And we actually we put a lot into it, as silly as the movie is. It was the first thing I made for public access TV. I think I didn't make it specifically for that, but I entered it in the video contest here back in like 2008 or something, and and it's still, that one has a fond place in our hearts still. Ian used to say that it was the best movie we ever made until until a couple summers ago. The watermelon one was one I did at this summer program, kind of a summer art like camp thing, and that was an interesting program because that was the first time that I had sort of been exposed to the more like avant-garde or more experimental side of filmmaking. The two that came after that, the two about the skateboarding, were projects I did at USC. This was before I started in like my film production classes. This was just kind of an elective class called digital storytelling, and the main focus was on documentaries. And they didn't have the really nice equipment that the main film school had, but they had some pretty, I thought it was pretty, nice equipment for what it was. It was probably some of the best I had ever used at that time. And those were some of my first, like, I guess, true documentaries that I had done.
Cool.
And then the last one, broadcast, was a movie. You know all about it because you were one of the people who helped make it. So I guess for the viewers, me, Ian, you, and Darren Knapp, we all got together back in 2011, and I said, like, hey, all of you guys are really talented, and you're all my friends from public access. Let's make a movie and see what we can do. And Ian and I, especially, we really wanted to do something serious, and because pretty much all the movies we had made were really comedic or just silly, not only in the content but in the production values of them too. So we wanted to test ourselves in that aspect, and also we wanted to try to put together a longer story and like hold it together over the course of 30 or 40 minutes, because we had never really done that before either. And the movie was supposed to be a little shorter than it ended up being, because I didn't really know back then when I wrote it that a page on a script, if it's all action and description, then it doesn't count as only a minute. It's usually like 2 minutes, maybe 3. And I also discovered that I like slower pacing sometimes, so that kind of stretched the movie out. But it was a really fun experience, and I think some of the biggest things that I took away with it were just stronger friendships with all of you guys. We really got to know each other, and I realized that I really love working with all of you guys, and we've been friends ever since. So
It was definitely a fun experience to do something. It was definitely the largest kind of, as far as length and production-wise, project that I've ever worked on. So, we actually have a trailer for it. That was just a clip that we saw. We want to actually show a whole trailer that's kind of like supposed to be like a typical movie trailer. So we have that all set up. We can maybe go ahead and roll the trailer.
I repeat, the varying reports continue to stream in. Confirmation has come across the wires this hour that large circular craft have landed in locations across North America and Eastern Europe. It is being reported that strange, unidentified creatures have emerged from the craft. Creatures indeed unlike anything seen on this earth before. Reports are coming in about aggressive behavior on behalf of the creatures. Once again, we urge people to flee targeted areas or seek shelter. Every single person listening to this reports have come to seek shelter have yet to be substantiated. Authorities have announced multiple incidents of wounded and maimed civilians and should be considered mortally dangerous and malevolent under any circumstances.
Pretty interesting trailer. I remember I showed some people, and they were like, "Oh, I want to see that movie. It looks really looks creepy." So what was the sort of the one thing from that movie that you took that you think that will help you with your future, video production and movie making?
I'll tell you, it's hard to pick one thing because pretty much everything that I learned, I learned so much from that. At that point when we started that, I'd been in college for I think I'd already been in college for a year and was going into my second year. And by the time we finished it, because we could only work on it during the summer, I was done with my second year. And I learned more from that than I had about filmmaking in any class that I had taken, up to that point. And that's, just everything from I guess taking what you write on the page, first of all, structuring a story, writing something and then putting it together like this and editing it yourself too is like, you see what works and what doesn't, or, as you're watching the finished movie, you see like what could be better structure-wise, story-wise, why certain things worked or didn't work, and then just taking what's on the page and transferring it into something that's doable with, your budget, which our budget was, we didn't have one. We had no money. And, being able to pull it off with a limited amount of people, working around with everybody's schedules and that kind of thing, that was another big takeaway. Working with an actor. I had never really worked with someone who was actually an actor, who wanted to be an actor, who were trying to bring out like emotions within this character, and how to talk to an actor and work with them to get the performance that you want, while still allowing them to create it. That was another huge thing. And knowing, as you were a big influence on this, knowing when to say enough is enough, we have to move on, and I think that was a huge lesson that I have taken with me ever since then. You can't spend all day filming something and trying to get it right if it's not working, and sometimes you just have to take what you have and work with it and move on. You can't necessarily go back and reshoot everything, and then also on the flip side of that, learning to recognize the moments when, something very specific is necessary to this story, and being adamant, as like a director or somebody, being adamant on getting it that way, because you know that without it, the story won't really function as a whole. And that was another experience that I had a couple times on the movie. So yeah, all of those things, just and also, I guess, doing a project like this with no money, and everyone was a volunteer, and doing it on their time off, in between their work schedules and that kind of thing. That just the attitude that everybody had on the set was something that I don't know. It was just really good to work in that environment, because in the like in Los Angeles, for example, where there's much more money involved in movies, people aren't always that way. Like the money in a way is like can corrupt the artistry of it, and just the community, the communal sense of making something like this. So like the attitude that everyone had about the movie, and seeing how everyone was putting so much hard work into it just for the passion of doing it, that just really stuck with me, and I've carried that with me ever since, and thought that's the attitude that I want to have whenever I am on a film set, no matter if I'm getting paid or not. Like that's how I'm going to be. So,
well, that brings me to a question I always ask my guests. That I love to ask, and that is, why do you think art and creativity is important for people to do?
Well, I guess one reason would just be connecting with people, connecting with the world at large. I mean, that's why I mean, from a filmmaking perspective, I feel like, that's why I do things like this, is to kind of connect with an audience. And, if you're a painter, you want to connect with people who view your painting, or if you're a musician, you want to connect in some way with people who are listening to your song. And it's just art in general. It's the things the emotions that you can capture with art. Sometimes you just can't say those things. You can't, and sometimes facts aren't enough. It's hard to explain, but I feel like this kind of connection between people and sense of community is a reason why a lot of people do artistic things. And then there's always just kind of, I'm sure everyone kind of has, they just like feel some kind of energy inside of them. They're not really sure like where it needs to go, and they just need to do something to let it out. And art is a great way to do that. At least that's how I feel about it. So
That's good. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
It's funny because every interview I do, people say that question. They all almost say very similar things. So. All right. Well, what's planned for Manuel Crosby? What do you have planning? I know you're going back to school in a couple days, but what else is kind of in your future for video production?
Well, I'm hoping to develop my skill, I guess, on cinematography, and really focus on that. Hopefully, be able to become a cinematographer someday, along with continuing to write as much as I can. As far as like specific projects, my friend Darren and I are actually working on a feature-length script right now of an idea that he's had for a really long time, and that's great. I'm really enjoying that because I'm working with one of my good friends from here. It's just we're doing it because we love to do this kind of thing, and I'm really, I don't know, I just feel really excited about where that's going to go in the future, and yeah.
Cool. Well, we're almost out of time. We've had many conversations, and we could probably go on for another half hour, but
that's for
or
sure.
another 10 hours.
Yeah.
I didn't even get to ask you about movies and stuff like that, but oh well.
Yeah.
Quickly, what movie recently has come out that you think is a really good one?
I think Looper is a really great movie because, not only because of the style and just the overall, cinematic skill that went into it, but because it has a message. It matters. It makes you think about the cycle of violence and many other issues, and I think that's something that all movies should strive for, is to have some kind of message within them that matters.
Cool. All right, Manuel, thank you very much, and
Thank
thank you
you
for watching Art in the Digital World. I'll see you next time.